think that one of the biggest challenges is dealing with I wouldn't say only complexity but diversity. Um, so I'll give you a quick context of how I see it from my perspective, and then I'll try to adapt that to the implications for the current business world. Um, Political leaders of the past in the developing world were used to impose their authority, or even those who call themselves Democrats. It was relatively easy because they will lead based on their own experiences and based on their own ideology. But in a globalized world, we live in a world that goes beyond ideologies. It's very hard to find even in a small community group of people that think about the same, because the way that information works has created a dynamic in which diversity is the rule. We're no longer so homogeneous as we used to be. You can no longer base your ability to inspire, to mobilize, to create, to model behavior. You cannot do all that only based in your experience. In my leadership training, which is for activists, I spoke about authentic leadership, and I remind my students that using our own life stories at times might be destructive rather than beneficial, because your own perspective and resentments in a highly divided society may get on the way of your service. So our own intimate suffering can become a distraction. But when you try to learn from others and understand their perspective, then you become a more diverse, a more flexible, and more authentic leader. So I'm trying to imagine a business leader who has not traveled. I'm trying to imagine a business leader who only reads about his or her subject, or that is only interested about the current news of his or her industry. That's a leader without flexibility and without the capacity to lead complex groups. But then I'm trying to imagine a leader that is very curiosity, has a lot of curiosity about life, and reads about world events, and tries to, if possible, either travel or read, or at least watch documentaries about other countries. And suddenly he has an employee that comes from India or from Nicaragua or from Mexico, but this person knows that culture, so it's easier to lead because has a more well-rounded cultural background. I think that other challenges that are facing, it's using the power of your emotions to make decisions. For some reason, the way that we've been trained in schools, in business schools, in political parties, if someone is going into politics and so on, is that leadership is mostly a set of attributes in which compassion, love, um, the search for truth and so on are not that relevant. It's better to speak well, to have persuasion, to have the ability to influence and so on. So I think that the other challenge is to feel comfortable with ourselves and knowing ourselves, and using through a love and compassion to lead, and not only as a rhetoric, but as something that is really your inner energy on how you mobilize people. I learned that your own peers, your own colleagues could be your hardest critics. So by being prepared to be called a traitor to your own tribe, if I may say, you can advance the cause of reconciliation in a political context. But that ability only does not come from do not come from hard skills. It calls from a sort of search of the inner Mandela within ourselves. Um, so witnessing that by serving those that might have done harm to us, we could find a great source of inner peace and faith, but also our leadership grows to a higher level. And I think this is an implication that is not only relevant to highly divided societies, it's not only relevant to a context in which, for example, in my companies, I have to deal with people that put my family into prison. I have to deal with people that were on the other side of the world, and I know that some of their political institutions violated human rights and so on. But if I truly believe in reconciliation, I have to learn that using my own life story, as I said before, might be destructive because my perspective and resentment gets on the way of my ability to lead and mobilize and creating consensus. And I think this has a powerful implication for every industry. If if we try to lead thinking that leadership is a competition or a fierce competition or in which we have to destroy the other one in the market, for example, so that might hurt our creativity. You see, because the low hanging fruit, it's attacking. It's going to war. If I may use that symbol, but when you are in a state of 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 emotional flow in which you feel comfortable with your emotions, you can be more creative. You do not need to use your authority because sometimes you have the power to do things. But when you have the power to do things and you are not in that state, then you tend to use that power. When you use your power, I think you diminish your power. But when you use your persuasion, your capacity to inspire, your power grows and it's easier to mobilize. And that's another challenge that I've witnessed all across the world, but for a reason it's more evident in the developed world that those in positions of authority do not feel comfortable in using their emotions, their positive emotions, in really using love as a force to mobilize others.
Au revoir.